May I speak in the name of God, Creator, Redeemer, Sustainer. Amen. Amen. Please be seated. So today, we are celebrating Climate Sunday. I say celebrating very loosely. Sustainability, green issues, climate change, environmentalism. Words such as these have increasingly dominated the discourse of our leaders, politicians, governments and business, desperate to show their environmental credentials. But the Christian community seems like it's been playing catch-up. Somehow, the church has not, until recently, viewed these issues as a priority, and we know this must change. The evidence for climate change is unequivocal. The evidence shows, amongst all things, a recent and unprecedented global rise in temperature, a rise in sea levels, and a global rise in greenhouse gases. Whether it's plastic pollution littering the seas and the poorest communities, or species going extinct at record rates, or the climate crisis making droughts, floods and storms more frequent, we've misused and damaged this beautiful gift of God. We're feeling some of the effects in the UK, but the impacts are hitting people in poverty the hardest. In the West, we can too easily ignore the impact of climate change. If it does seem to be getting warm, then surely that's a good thing for the climate here in the UK. But we don't understand the impact of environmental damage on others around the world. As we continue to consume here in the UK, our lifestyles are having a negative effect on our neighbours in the poorest parts of the world. Christian Aid has numerous stories of individuals' lives being impacted by climate change. For example, Andrew lives in Malawi, in a village hit by floods that meant he lost his harvest and therefore struggles to feed his family. In recent years, drought has shriveled the crops before floods washed away the next harvest. In another year, their land became a sandpit. The river flooded, dumping 12,000 tons of sand on their soil. He says, "Our land was like a river. Water brought all this sand. Now we have to dig down a metre to find good earth. In the past, food would last all year round to the next harvest. But these days, because of droughts and floods, we never harvest enough for the whole year." His life is determined by his environment, by the cycle of the seasons. Extreme weather, the result of climate change, does not mean bad weather. Doesn't just mean bad weather, it can also mean starvation. It's the world's poorest people who bear the brunt, who are affected the most by climate change. As God's people, we are called to act justly, to love our neighbours and to care for God's creation. Our lifestyles are contributing to climate change and impacting the lives of people around the world. The Bible gives us 3 events within the storyline that reveals God's concerns for the physical world. God created the physical world. God became physical, and God's hope is physical. Genesis tells us the message that what God created was good. It wasn't created out of destruction or brokenness. It was created good. The biblical narrative kicks off as God creates heaven and earth and pronounces it good. He creates it as a reflection of his glory and majesty. The story tells of a beautiful and bountiful creation with abundance for all, but one that depends on the faithful vocation of its human caretakers. We are called to carefully and responsibly manage God's creation that was entrusted to us, exercising stewardship and service over the rest of his creatures in a way that reflects his character, not through brutality and carelessness, but with love, compassion, and service. God became physical. As Jesus healed the physical needs of others, So we must as Christians do all we can to heal the physical needs of our brothers and sisters who are suffering the most because of climate change. Our response to climate change is part of our faith. Climate change is causing starvation, and we must do something to help. As God's people living today, we live in the now and the not yet, in a place where God's kingdom is here in part, but not in full. A situation where we are continually praying that God's kingdom would come on earth as in heaven. Like Jesus, our role is to proclaim and demonstrate the gospel, the new kingdom, to model a new humanity, to bear witness now to the total redemption that God will one day bring to the world. The world is crying out, but God is at work, and we're invited to join him in a ministry of reconciliation, reconciling the people to creation that we've been given to steward and see it restored. In response to the changing climate, we need to examine our lives and role in this before God. We must change the way we live to have less impact on the earth and our neighbour. We must consider the things that we buy and the lifestyles we take for granted, and what we're going to do to contribute to climate change. Now, here at St Catherine's, we are a Gold Eco Church, and this is something that we are really passionate about. You will see on the back of your readings, you have a plastic pledge. I would really encourage you to look at this and think what you can do for climate change. I have got a board with our environmental policy that I would like everybody that completes their plastic pledge to put on here, so that we can see physically what we are doing to help creation. We must live by example to the world around us, by the way that we outrageously care for the environment and seek to stop climate change. What can you do to help? Amen.
Amen.